Since the third and probably final trailer for It came out, plus 2 TV spots, and because this movie is probably my most anticipated film for the rest of 2017, I decided I'm going to take a crack at breaking down things you might have missed in these 3 trailers and 2 TV spots. This means possible story points, Easter eggs, and overall predictions for the movie as a whole. So, unlike my last video on It, which you can check out if you click on the icon in the right-hand corner of the screen, this video contains major spoilers for the book of It and possibly the movie. I just seen so many parts in the trailer that I think could fit in with the story of the movie that I wanted to get it off my chest. I'm not going to be restating anything that I previously pointed out in my other video, only if something new came up about it. So, let's start with the first trailer. First, the narration you hear.
Derry's not like any time I've ever been in before.
I said in my previous video that it was Eddie who was talking, but according to IMDb, it is actually Ben who is speaking here. The group of kids in this movie, Bill, Eddie, Richie, Stan, Ben, Mike, and Beverly, are known as the Losers Club, and so I am going to be referring to them as such in the future. So, I have been noticing that in some of the shots of the Losers Club, some kids are missing. This could just be them either being right out of frame, or it could be something bigger. I'll get back to my theory on this later, but for right now, I just want to point out this shot of the Losers Club biking, except it isn't the whole Losers Club. Only 4 kids, Bill, Richie, Eddie, and Stan, out of the total 7, are in this shot. Ben, Beverly, and Mike are missing. Mike is probably missing because I'm guessing he isn't in the story yet at this point. You see, in the book, Mike is introduced in the story already after the kids know about the clown, so I think this shot is early in the film. However, Ben and Beverly are still not in it. This might be even before Ben is introduced into the story, but I doubt it. Beverly doesn't really ride, per se, with the other kids in the book, so this might be just that. However, this could also be a shot where it shows all the kids coming together through biking, like a biking version of that shot from Creed a couple years ago, where people are introduced one by one. We'll just have to see. This shot is probably the most interesting shot in the entire first trailer. I already covered the missing sign back in my other video, but the sign is not what I want you to focus on in this shot, namely the people behind the sign.
6 times the national average. And that's just grown-ups. Kids are worse.
In the background, you can clearly see Eddie, Bill, Beverly, Richie, and Stan walking into a house marked 80. There is no mention of an 80 address in the book, but I'm assuming this is Beverly's house. She is leading the others in, and in the book, it is her house that the Losers Club go into at one point. So, Beverly had blood come out of her sink and shower drain in her bathroom. This is shown later in the trailer. However, her parents don't see the blood at all, so she brings the boys over to see if they see the blood. This is what I think is happening in this shot. Ben isn't in this shot, but he went over to Beverly's house in the book. So either Ben is already in the house, or this isn't the same scene I think it is. So we're going to jump forward to this shot with the projector. I'm going to pause the screen here because there is the bottom of a list of streets and landmarks in Derry, Maine. A lot of these streets don't make big appearances in the book, but there is one that definitely does. That is Center Street, number 17. Center Street is important for a number of reasons. In the book, the Aladdin movie theater is on Center Street, and after Richie, Ben, and Beverly see a movie featuring a werewolf there, it takes the form of the teenage werewolf to scare the Losers Club later in this trailer. Center Street is also the street where Bill finds Silver, the big silver bicycle we see him riding in the bike shots. Center Street is also where Center Street Drugstore is. This is where Eddie gets his aspirator medicine from. The owner is Norbert Keene, a minor villain in the story, and he briefly shows up in the next 2 trailers. And finally, Center Street is also the street Bill and Richie see through a moving photograph that spits blood. Also in this projector scene is a quick shot of Eddie struggling to breathe. This just furthers the idea that he has asthma. Another interesting fact is that when new photos come on the projector, they say Made in Canada instead of the Made in USA that the other photos of Derry said. These quick flashes along with the text, "What are you afraid of?" go really well together. In the book, every kid in the Losers Club experienced a confrontation with its many faces. These faces took the form of whatever the kids were afraid of at that moment. So in this scene, Eddie is running away from a leper that he is continually taunted with throughout the book. The location of this shot is the house on Neibolt Street, which plays a big role in the book, so I'll talk about that later. Anyway, we get a shot of Ben running along the Kendaskig in the Barrens. The Barrens is the sort of clubhouse meeting area for the Losers Club throughout the book. I'm guessing in this shot Ben is being chased by Henry Bowers, the big bully and his gang. Speaking of which, here he is. This is a continuation of the previous shot of him leaning against a car. You can see the car along with Belch Huggins, an accomplice of Henry, in the background of this shot. But you can see Henry walking towards this balloon. I think this might be how It first comes in contact with Henry, because It later possesses Henry to try to kill the Losers Club. This shot of Pennywise's hand with Beverly, Eddie, and Bill and Richie is also really interesting. For one, we get Pennywise's transformation into the teenage werewolf. In the books, this was the result of Richie seeing a movie with a werewolf in it, and it changed its form to the werewolf to scare Richie. In the other trailers, we see the whole Losers Club, including Mike, going into this setting, the house on Neibolt Street. In the book, the house on Neibolt Street plays a big role in the story. A lot of scares happen here, and this looks to be one of them. However, I find two things interesting. One is Eddie. He seems to be holding down his left arm in some way that is not really that normal. He also seems dazed, for Richie is telling him something, but he's not really paying attention to him. This leads me to believe that in this shot, Eddie has a broken arm. In the book, this was the result of the bullies, Henry, Belch, Victor, and Patrick, all characters that show up together in later trailers, but I think that they changed this for the movie. In the book, Henry was a big threat to everyone in the Losers Club, and because the book was so long, it took its time explaining all the things the bullies did to each of the kids in the Losers Club. But you can't fit all those interactions into the movie because it would take too much time. So my theory is that the movie is going to focus on only one kid being the brunt of all the bullies, Ben. Ben probably fared worst against the bullies in the book, and we already see shots of him, alone, being attacked by the bullies in later trailers. Because the movie already put all the bully action on Ben, I think the movie is going to change the source of Eddie's broken arm to instead be because of It. Along with that, the question remains, where is Stan, Ben, and Mike? I think I have a theory about that, but I'll get back to it later. One more thing about the whole "what are you afraid of" section is the sound. It is a laughing sound, sped up and growing in pitch. A lot of the trailers for It use repetition, whether it be from Georgie at the end of this trailer saying,
Bill, if you'll come with me, you'll float too. You'll float too. You'll float too. You'll float too. You'll float too.
or the
Make it a wonderful day. Kill them all! Kill them all!
in the TV spot labeled A Wonderful Day. This clown laughing sound is just another example of how the marketing team behind It uses repetition as a means of advertising. Moving on, this part with Mike's vision from It is complicated. At first, I thought that it was going to represent the fire at the black spot. In the book, there is a whole section dedicated to Mike finding out about all the times that It was in Derry in the past. The fire at the black spot was one of them. At first, I thought that this vision was supposed to represent that fire with the sign "Quality Meat" sealing the deal. However, from an article posted by Collider.com, it was proven from a set visit that this vision is not of the black spot fire. The article says how the black spot will connect to the movies, but I'll let you visit it on your own risk. I will leave a link to the article in the description. I'm going to skip over Beverly's vision of blood just because the explanation is a bit confusing, and because it really isn't different in the book, at least in these two shots. Instead, I'm going to skip to the last section of this trailer in the basement with Georgie. Two things pop out in this section. The first is kind of disturbing. In the book, Georgie does come and haunt Bill, but it is at the end of the book, and it is when It takes the form of a bloody, battered Georgie who gets mad at Bill, similarly to the one in this trailer. However, in this trailer, Pennywise is with Georgie in the basement as well, so that means that It can't be taking the form of Georgie in this scene because It is already taking the form of Pennywise. Either they gave It abilities to project more than one being onto someone, or it did something with Georgie to bring him back to life. I'm just confused about this part. Anyway, another interesting thing about this part is that in the book, Georgie is asked by Bill to go down to the basement to get golf wax, which you can see here in the first part of the trailer. This wax coated the outside of the paper boat and made it not completely get soaked because of the rain. I'm guessing the reason that this last scene is set in the basement was to show that It is retracing the last minutes of Georgie's life. Creepy. Okay, that's all I got out of the first trailer. Now I'm gonna move on to the second trailer that debuted at the MTV Movie Awards. One thing I'm pretty much sure of off the bat is this shot of the kids biking in the woods. This is almost certainly the Barrens, which I described earlier, and I think I even know when this shot is in the story. In the book, Ben is introduced to the rest of the kids in a Losers Club by helping them build a dam. The kids are so impressed by Ben's inventive mind that they let him join the Losers Club. I think this is probably the kids biking to the dam. This shot is followed by the full Losers Club walking to the Barrens, and you can really get to see how diverse all the kids are. You also have Stan's narration.
When you're a kid, you think that you'll always be protected, cared for. But when you're alone as a kid, the monsters see you as weaker. You don't even know they're getting closer until it's too late.
This is a really good analogy for what the book represents. Stephen King imposes these Goonies-style kids over a supernatural monster, and that contrast is really what drives the story forward. Over this narration, we get 2 shots from the iconic rock fight between the Losers Club and the Bullies. There's really not a lot in this trailer to break down. It's pretty straightforward with no confusing or lingering shots, so I'm mainly just going to be explaining how certain things or remarks are related to the book. So this shot with Georgie looking at something in the basement is nice because it relates to the narration above it.
But when you're alone as a kid?
Here we get our first full look at the bullies from left to right. Patrick Hockstetter, Belch Huggins, Henry Bowers, and Victor Criss, laughing at Richie walking by. Here's a nice shot of Norbert Keene, who is the owner of a drugstore on Center Street, as I discussed in the first trailer. Definitely menacing. This shot of Bill, Richie, and Eddie in the house on Nibel Street is probably a precursor to the shot with Pennywise turning into a werewolf later. Notice how Eddie isn't grasping his arm in this shot like he was in the other one. I really like this scene in the sewers because it gives humanity to the kids in the Losers Club. Eddie being the cautious and sensible one, and Richie being the clown. Not that clown. The name of Betty Ripsum is important in the book because she was the second kid to get killed after Georgie. So this is her shoe, and it is supposed to show that it has already started to kill kids. Georgie wasn't the only one. I also like the pouch Eddie seems to be carrying around in the sewers and during the rock fight. In these quick shots after the balloon pops, you have Bill and Richie at Nibel Street reacting to something. It's in the same location as when Eddie, Bill, Richie, and Beverly were in before, and that leads me to believe that this might be a part of that same sequence. However, in the book, Bill and Richie do visit Nibel Street on their own and come face to face with a teenage werewolf, so this could also be that scene. That's all I could get from the MTV trailer. Now on to the most recent full trailer. This might be my favorite trailer for this movie, and there are definitely some lingering questions after this one, so let's dive right in. One thing that I immediately saw in this new trailer was that the color palette was a lot richer and darker than the previous trailers. What I mean by this is in this shot-for-shot comparison between pretty much the same shot from the MTV trailer and trailer 2, you can see clearly how the one in trailer 2 is a lot richer in color. I like this circle with the loser replaced as lover on Eddie's cast. There is a circle in the book when Stan cuts everyone's hands with a broken bottle of Coke, and they swear to come back if it comes back, but I don't think this is in that scene. For one, that scene took place right outside the sewers, and this seems to be in the Barrens somewhere. This scene shows a few seconds before the previous scene in the first trailer, and I think this is confirmation that the house, 80-something, is Beverly's house. Here, she clearly reaches into her bag to probably bring out a key. By the way, I really like the addition of the balloon to the Warner Brothers and New Line logos. This shot of Ben is probably when he's leaving his second home, the library, and he's probably stopped by Henry and his gang, which leads to this shot of the bullies holding Ben against a bridge. In the book, Ben is thrown off this bridge, so I'm guessing that's what's going to happen as well. After some new footage with Pennywise, we get this line from Mike.
My grandfather thinks this town is cursed.
In the book, Mike is the king of exposition, and now he looks to be continuing that trend in the movie as well. One bit of nice foreshadowing is the statue of Paul Bunyan behind Mike. When the Losers Club come back to Derry as adults, it scares adult Richie by making this statue come to life while he's dreaming. This shot of Ben in the library is probably in the same sequence as when the balloon floated behind him in the first trailer. In the book, these newspaper articles are explained in detail by recordings adult Mike took with various older residents of Derry, and I think this voice recorder on the desk is a reference to that. These newspapers reference the Kitchener Iron Works explosion and the Bradley Gang shootout in the late 1800s, with this picture of Pennywise topping it all off. After these muddy footprints in Bill's house, we get a scare from possessed Georgie. Here is one of the 2 Easter eggs in this trailer. In It and the Dark Tower series, there's a being who takes the form of a giant turtle. The director of it, Andy Muschietti, stated that he was never too crazy about the mythology of the turtle, but he did leave an Easter egg in the form of this Lego turtle Bill drops in this scene. Another interesting thing in this scene in the basement is that Pennywise's eyes are actually reflected in the water now. In the first trailer, Pennywise's eyes were not reflected in the water, and I thought this was a purposeful choice from the creative team, but I guess that scene just wasn't done with post-production yet. Here's an interesting scene of the Losers Club minus Eddie, all pretty battered. Ben has this huge scar on his shirt, and I'll come back to that later. I think I have an idea for why Eddie isn't in this shot, and I think it's because the kids are looking at Eddie with his broken arm. Ben looks like he's about to say something, and Beverly seems to be looking down with possible guilt. Richie also seems disgusted, so I'm guessing this is after the attack on the house on Nybald Street that we see in a lot of these trailers, and Eddie got his broken arm from that. As I explained before, Betty Ripson was the next kid to get killed after Georgie, so I like the narration over the shot of Bill examining her shoe.
What happens when another Georgie goes missing?
This shot of Henry with the switchblade is definitely when it comes in contact with the bullies. You see, in the book, it uses Henry and the bullies as a sort of catalyst to get the Losers Club killed, and to do this, it gives Henry this switchblade here by Henry finding it in his father's mailbox. I think this is a continuation of the two scenes we saw earlier in other trailers. I think maybe the balloon we saw might have been tied to the mailbox to signify that its present was, well, present. I like how when Stan is in the sewers in this shot, his flashlight illuminates the clothes and stuffed animals of its previous victims. This really shows how long it has been haunting the town of Derry. This shot is also a really interesting one. We have Pennywise going down a well that I think is in the basement of the house on Nybald Street. I really like the imagery of the noose in this hanging rope on the left. Also, if you look in the right-hand corner of the frame, you can see a form slightly moving. At first I wasn't sure if this was a hand or arm or something else. However, in the TV spot Terror, it was proven that this form in the corner is in fact an arm holding onto one of the stones. The only question is, who? I'm pretty sure that it is Bill, because in this shot before, Bill is the only one who has a long-sleeve shirt out of the Losers Club. You can clearly see that this is a long-sleeve shirt. Also, when I turned up the brightness of this shot, you can faintly make out the plaid pattern Bill was wearing earlier. I'm guessing this woman here is Eddie's mother. She is very overweight in the books, and that description matches this woman quite well. Also, you can see the shoulder of someone in the left corner of the frame, and in the MTV trailer we see Eddie wearing a reddish shirt. I'd like to point out the repetition and once again change in pitch with this trailer. You can hear the progressive inclining pitch of Georgie repeating,
You'll float too.
What happens when another Georgie goes missing?
You'll float too.
Or one of us?
You'll float too.
Are you just gonna pretend it isn't happening like everyone else in this town?
You'll float too.
If we stick together, we'll win.
And this just continues the repetition in marketing for this movie. I'm really not sure what this red glow is in this shot. It could be the giant eye the kids fight, but that's in the sewers, and this shot is in some sort of hallway. It could be the blood in Beverly's house, but blood doesn't glow red like this, so I'm just left guessing at this point. Bill seems to be moving his arms as the glow intensifies, so maybe he's opening some sort of door? I'm just not sure. If you have any ideas, please feel free to comment down below. This shot of Pennywise outside this window is really faithful to the book, because throughout the book Stephen King describes Pennywise as having glowing yellow eyes. You can clearly see the film team got this detail right. This shot of Bill looks to be in the same spot as where their circle was, so maybe this is a continuation of that. Here, Beverly is showing her scars from the attack at the house on Nybald Street. After a few shots from Nybald Street we already saw, we cut to Bill saying,
If we stick together, we'll win.
The only thing that has been bothering me is that writing behind Bill. I've tried to find out what that writing says, but I haven't had any luck. If you have any ideas as to what the writing says, please leave a comment. Anyway, after that we cut to Mike, Ben, Richie, Stan, and Eddie running through the sewers, along with the same five finding Beverly suspended in mid-air. You might have already noticed, but there was one person missing from these shots, Bill. I think that in this whole set piece in the sewers, Bill and Beverly will get separated from the pack. and Mike, Richie, Ben, Stan, and Eddie will have to find them. This shot of Mike is interesting. For one, we saw him have a vision with black charred hands before, and if that isn't the fire at the black spot, then whatever is attacking him here is probably what those hands were before. I'm also fairly certain this shot takes place in the sewers, based on the fact that Eddie is shining the same flashlight he had in the other shots, plus the same one Stan had when he was in the sewers, plus all the kids are wearing the same clothing they wear in other shots from the sewers. This scene of Mike, Eddie, Richie, Stan, and Ben in the sewers also furthers my theory about Bill and Beverly splitting away from the rest of the Losers Club. Here, Eddie is screaming at something, and I'm guessing this is when either Bill or Beverly is separated from the group. This shot of Pennywise coming out of this refrigerator is probably the reverse of where Eddie, Beverly, Bill, and Richie were before. In fact, I'm guessing Pennywise comes out of this refrigerator and then transforms into a teenage werewolf, which we'll see more of later. This shot of a hand coming out to push Eddie, same shirt, off this ledge is how I think Eddie gets a broken arm. The broken floorboards on the ground Eddie is looking at suggest that this is the same location as the next shot, and so I think Eddie will be pushed off this ledge and then break his arm. This shot is interesting. I think I know where it comes from. Judging by Ben's clothing, I can assume that he is in the sewers because in all the shots of him in the sewers, he's wearing a yellow shirt instead of the Galaxy shirt he wears on Neibolt Street. He looks to be being strangled by what looks to be a sort of canvas. I, however, think this is webbing. The final form the kid's face in the sewers is that of a giant spider, and I'm guessing this is a piece of the spider's webbing strangling Ben. Here's a scene of Stan in the sewers. Once again, he's wearing the red button-down shirt like in the sewer shot as opposed to the green and white button-down shirt in the Neibolt Street scenes. It appears as if Pennywise is lifting him up. Maybe this is what it turns into after that form that was attacking Mike earlier. Here's Patrick Hockstetter meeting his end. This is interesting because in the book he dies differently. He gets all his blood sucked out of him by slugs, so this fiery death almost seems better. This scene with Richie is refreshing because it isn't in the book at all. It leaves me guessing with what is going on in this scene. There are stained glass windows, so it looks to be in some sort of church. Maybe the one Stan was speaking at in the MTV trailer? Anyway, there's another Easter egg in here, in the form of this clown that looks like the version of Pennywise Tim Curry played in the previous adaptation of It from 1990. It's nice to see this film pay homage to its predecessor. There is one quick shot in this sequence that is leaving me confused. In the reaction shot of Richie screaming, there is a blue glare in Richie's glasses. I don't know if this is just from the light reflecting off it or something else, but we'll have to see. Anyway, that's all I got out of the third full-length trailer. Now I just want to go on to the two 30-second TV spots that came out. One of them is in Spanish, so it has subtitles, and I can't really take them off, so sorry about that. Anyway, I'm going to start with the Spanish one titled Terror. This TV spot tells the story of Eddie, and when he first goes to Neibolt Street. Also, is it just me, or does Pennywise sound more Spanish in this scene than in the previous trailer?
Where are you going?
What's interesting about this scene is that in the other trailers, we saw the leper chasing Eddie here, and it is the leper in the book as well. Maybe Pennywise starts as Pennywise to lure Eddie in, and then changes to the leper to chase him down. This is the shot that shows that the form in the upper right-hand corner is an arm. The biggest mystery in this TV spot is this shot of Ben being chased by something. The location looks to be an archive at a library, so maybe Ben got stopped by it in the library he was seen in earlier. The creature itself first looked like the leper that was chasing Eddie, but then the hands are strangely shaped, plus it is deep black. So then I thought that creature that was attacking Mike in the other trailer. Another possibility, and now that I think about it, what this probably is the mummy that Ben is haunted by in the book. Just like Richie was hunted by the teenage werewolf, in the book, Ben's monster is a mummy. That would explain the weirdly shaped arms, the tatteredness of the whole creature, and the things I mistook for furs being the wrapped up part of the mummy coming off. This shot of Beverly is in the same location as the refrigerator, so I think this is what she's reacting to in this shot. That's what I got out of that TV spot. On to the last bit of marketing for this movie, the TV spot labeled A Wonderful Day. The first thing I noticed about this is that in this shot they added red lines to the sewer map Bill projected. Don't know why, but they did. Here, we also get the resolution to the projector scare, that being Mike kicking the projector over. The way they edited it, it makes you think that Pennywise was there, but that is in fact not true. The shot with Beverly is a different shot than the others, different walls. Because of this shot of Bill and Richie opening this door in Neibolt Street, It leads me to believe that we will in fact have a sequence of just Bill and Richie at the house before the whole Losers Club. Here we have the same shot of the kids in the circle, but one more thing is in here which I am confused by. Stan here has a head cast. At least it looks like that from this angle. Maybe it's something else. You can tell me in the comments. But all I can see is a head cast on Stan. I have no idea what this means, but we'll just have to see. Once more, we have the marketing team for It using repetition as a means to scare us with the crowd shouting,
Kill them all! Kill them all!
The phrase kill them all does show up in the book, but not in this context. Instead, it is in the adult story when Pennywise tells adult Henry to
Kill them all!
Anyway, that's all I got for all the marketing for the new adaptation for Stephen King's It. As you can well see, I am super duper excited for this film, and I just had to get all of this stuff I noticed in all of the trailers and TV spots off my chest. Still, the questions remain. What is that red glow? What does that writing say? And why is Stan in the head cast? Anyway, I'm going to go read the book again before the movie comes out, so goodbye. And always, thanks for watching.